My daughter hasn't spoken a word since the accident. Not a single syllable in 3 years. Just wide, haunted blue eyes that followed me around our too-quiet house. The therapist called it selective mutism, trauma-induced silence. I called it my life sentence for being behind the wheel that rain-slicked night. But last Tuesday, at precisely 3:17 p.m., her small hand shot out and gripped my wrist with terrifying strength as I reached for my car keys. Her lips, unused to forming words, moved in a silent, desperate shape. I leaned closer, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. And then the first sound in 3 years emerged, not a word, but a shattered, rasping whisper that froze the very blood in my veins. "Don't get in the car. Daddy, the man in the back seat isn't sleeping." I stared at her, my keys dangling forgotten from my fingers. The afternoon sun streamed through our kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Everything was normal. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a lawnmower, and my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, breaking a silence so profound I'd begun to believe it was permanent. "Lily?" My voice was a croak. "What did you say?" Her eyes, those deep oceanic wells of unspoken grief, were locked on our family car parked in the driveway. A sensible silver SUV, the very one I'd been driving the night of the accident. The one that had been meticulously repaired, every piece of shattered glass replaced, every dent smoothed away until no visible trace remained, except in our memories, and in Lily's silence. She didn't repeat herself. She just pointed a trembling finger toward the vehicle, her small body beginning to shake with silent sobs. Not the quiet tears I was used to, but full-bodied tremors of raw animal fear. My rational mind, the part of me that was an architect, a planner, a man who believed in visible, measurable things, scrambled for explanation. Nightmare residue. A delayed stress response. A hallucination born from my own deep-seated guilt. But the look in her eyes wasn't imaginary. It was the same look she'd had in the ambulance 3 years ago, a primal, all-consuming terror. I knelt before her, taking her cold hands in mine. "There's no one in the car, sweetheart, see?" I turned both our faces toward the large window overlooking the driveway. The SUV sat empty, passenger seats clearly visible through the glass. She shook her head violently, a negative so forceful it startled me. Then she did something she hadn't done since she was a toddler. She buried her face against my chest and clung to me, her tiny fists bunched in my shirt. That's when I saw it, or thought I did. A shift in the shadows of the back seat, a deepening of the gloom behind the headrest. I blinked, and it was just shadows again, just the play of light through the maple tree in our front yard. But the seed was planted, a cold, sharp seed of doubt. "Okay," I whispered into her hair, smelling the strawberry shampoo she still let me use on her silent bath nights. "We won't go in the car. We'll stay right here." I carried her to the living room sofa, wrapping her in the soft, yellow blankets she loved. I made hot chocolate the way her mother used to, with tiny marshmallows. I put on her favorite quiet movie, one with gentle music and no loud sounds. She sipped the chocolate, her eyes never leaving the window that faced the driveway. And I pretended to work on my laptop, but my screen was blank. All my attention was divided between my daughter's frozen posture and the silver SUV sitting innocuously 30 feet away. As dusk began to paint the sky in shades of purple and orange, the ordinary sounds of our neighborhood took on a sinister quality. Every creak of the house settling was a footstep. Every rustle of leaves outside was a breath from the back seat. I checked the doors twice. I drew all the blinds except the one facing the car, which I left open just to crack a terrible, irresistible slit through which to watch. When Lily finally fell into an exhausted sleep, her breathing shallow and quick even in dreams, I made my decision. I had to know. Quietly, I retrieved the heavy-duty flashlight from the garage. I slipped my phone into my pocket, thumb hovering over the emergency call screen. I stood by the front door, my hand on the cool metal of the knob, and looked back at my sleeping daughter. This was insanity. Checking a locked car in my own driveway because of a traumatized child's whisper. But what if? I turned the knob and stepped out into the cool evening. The motion sensor floodlight blinked on, bathing the driveway in a harsh white light. The SUV gleamed, a hunk of metal and glass. Nothing more. I approached slowly, my sneakers crunching softly on the gravel. I circled it first, shining the flashlight into the footwells, empty. I cupped my hands against the glass and peered into the back. Seat, empty, the familiar car seats. A forgotten coloring book, a lone, grubby sneaker. No man, sleeping or otherwise. A wave of relief, followed immediately by a crushing wave of guilt and sorrow, washed over me. Of course there was no one. My poor girl's mind was still trapped in that horrible night, weaving new horrors from the old fabric of her trauma. I needed to call Dr. Evans first thing in the morning. Maybe try a new specialist. I turned to go back inside, the tension leaching from my shoulders. Then my light caught something. A smudge on the inside of the rear passenger window, right at the level where someone's head might rest if they were sitting up. I hadn't noticed it from my angled view from the house. I moved closer. It wasn't a smudge from Lily's hands. She never sat back there anymore. It was a foggy, partial print, larger than a child's, and in the very center of it, held in the beam of my flashlight, was a single, short, dark hair, coarse, straight, not mine, and certainly not Lily's. My blood, which had just begun to warm, turned to ice slurry in my veins. It could be anything. From the mechanic who did the repairs 3 years ago. From a friend who'd hitched a ride months back. 100 explanations. But I found myself walking backward to the house, unable to turn my back on the vehicle. I locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, and slid the security chain into place a habit I'd lost after the accident because locks hadn't kept out the grief. I spent the night on the sofa beside Lily, jumping at every sound, my eyes glued to that slit in the blind. The car sat silently under the moon. Nothing moved. The next morning, in the clear, rational light of day, the fear seemed silly. The hair was doubtless mine. The print from some long-ago passenger. Lily was calm, back to her silent routine of drawing and watching the world with those two knowing eyes. I decided to take the car to the grocery store to prove to myself and perhaps to some subconscious part of her that it was safe. A normal errand on a normal Wednesday. I told her I was going out, that Mrs. Miller from next door would come sit with her. She was drawing at the kitchen table and didn't look up. I took that as acquiescence. I was wrong. As I picked up my keys from the bowl by the door, the drawing pad slid to the floor. I bent to pick it up. Lily's drawings were usually abstract swirls of color, dark clouds, the occasional stark, leafless tree. This one was different. It was our car, rendered with a child's shaky perspective but unmistakable. And in the back seat she had drawn a stick figure. A man, and where his eyes should have been, she had pressed down so hard with the black crayon that the paper was torn. 2 violent, dark holes. She was standing right behind me when I looked up. She shook her head once, slowly, her eyes pleading. "Lily," I said, my voice gentle. "It's just a drawing. It's just the car. It's safe." She reached out and took my hand, leading me to the window. She pointed at the car, then tapped her own temple twice. "I see him." A chill, unrelated to the morning air, traced my spine. This wasn't a night terror. This was a persistent, specific delusion anchored to a physical object. It was worse than I thought. "Okay," I said, surrendering. "No car today. I'll walk to the store later." The relief that washed over her small face was heartbreaking. She went back to her chair, her small shoulders slumping as if an enormous weight had been lifted. I called Dr. Evans from my home office, keeping my voice low. I described the whisper, the drawing, the intense fear. He was quiet for a moment. "Mark," he said gently, "this could be a significant breakthrough. The vocalization, even of a fearful nature, is a crack in the wall. The content is likely symbolic. The man in the back seat could represent the trauma itself, the accident, the guilt. It's taken a form her mind can process, a hidden, threatening presence. It made sense. Clinical, logical sense. So what do I do? Don't reinforce the fear by agreeing with the fantasy, but don't dismiss her feelings. Acknowledge her fear, but reiterate safety. Perhaps we can use this. If the man is the trauma, maybe we can help her find a way to tell him to leave. It was a plan. A rational therapeutic plan. I hung up feeling steadier. We would work through this. This was a step, however bizarre, toward healing. The feeling lasted until lunchtime. I was making sandwiches when the doorbell rang. Lily, who was setting the table, froze, a plastic plate clutched in her hand. Through the frosted glass of the front door, I saw the blurry shape of a uniformed man. It was Officer Jenkins, a kind-faced man who had been first on the scene the night of the accident. He'd visited a few times in the first year, checking in, leaving business cards with his personal cell number scribbled on the back. "Just in case," he'd said. "Mark," he said, removing his hat when I opened the door. "Hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Bill. Come in." He stepped into the foyer, his eyes taking in the tidy, too quiet house. He nodded toward Lily, who had shrunk behind my legs. "Hey there, Lilybug." She didn't respond, just stared. "I was doing my rounds in the neighborhood," Jenkins said, his voice casual but his posture oddly stiff. "Noticed your SUV sitting out there. Had a thought. We've had a few reports lately. Minor things. Car doors found ajar in the morning. A guy sleeping in a van over on Oak Street. Probably nothing connected. But," he trailed off, his eyes flicking to the window facing the driveway. "You haven't noticed anything strange, have you? Anyone lurking? Anything missing from the car?" The question was so specific, so perfectly aligned with my own dormant panic, that my breath hitched. "Strange how?" He shrugged, but it was a forced gesture. "Just, anything out of place. A feeling of being watched. Things moved." He looked directly at me. "The mind plays tricks, especially after what you've been through. But sometimes it's not a trick." Lily's hand found mine and squeezed hard. "Why do you ask, Bill?" I kept my voice level. He hesitated, choosing his words. "The man we found in the van on Oak Street. He was disoriented. Homeless, probably. He was carrying some odd items, things that didn't seem to belong to him. A child's hairbrush, a stuffed rabbit, and a set of car keys that didn't fit any vehicle nearby." Jenkins paused, his gaze intense. "The keys had a fob. For a late-model silver Genesis SUV, the air left my lungs. My own car key, with its distinctive black fob, felt suddenly heavy in my pocket. My car hasn't been broken into." "It's right there." "I know," Jenkins said quickly. "I ran the plates. It came back to you. That's why I'm here." "It's probably a coincidence. He could have found the fob anywhere. Dumpster diving?" But I had to check. He leaned slightly closer, dropping his voice. "Mark, would you mind if I took a look at your vehicle? Just to be thorough? Check for any signs of tampering?" The request was reasonable, professional, but every nerve in my body screamed no. Not because I had something to hide, but because Lily was trembling behind me, and the image of those two black, crayon-torn eyes was burned into my mind. "Of course," I heard myself say. The rational adult cooperating with law enforcement. "Let me get the key." Lily let out a sound, a thin, reedy whimper of protest. I squeezed her hand back, a silent plea for her to trust me. Officer Jenkins' inspection was meticulous. He checked the doors, the locks, the windows. He peered inside with his own, more powerful flashlight. He even got down on his hands and knees to look underneath. Finally, he stood, brushing dirt from his uniform knees. "Everything looks secure," he said. "No scratches on the locks, windows intact." He sounded almost disappointed. Like I said, probably a coincidence. "But Mark," he handed me a fresh business card. "You see anything, hear anything, you call me. Day or night. Don't hesitate." After he left, the house felt different. His visit had taken a private, nebulous fear and given it a shape, a context. A homeless man with a key fob to my car. It was a tangible thread, however thin, connecting Lily's terror to the real world. That night I couldn't sleep. Jenkins' words echoed. Sometimes it's not a trick. I got up and peered through the blind. The SUV was a dark hulk in the moonlight. And then I saw something that stopped my heart. The interior dome light flickered. Just for a second, a quick faint pulse of amber in the darkness, as if a door had been opened and shut a mile away, triggering the sensor for an instant. Impossible. The car was locked. The battery was new. It was a trick of the light, my exhausted eyes seeing what they feared. I went to the hall closet and dug out an old battery-powered baby monitor. We hadn't used it since Lily was an infant. I took the receiver unit to my bedside. I opened the front door just a crack, the chilly night air biting my skin, and placed the camera unit on the porch railing, angled directly at the car. I closed and locked the door. Back in bed, I stared at the small, green-tinted screen on the monitor. It showed a grainy, black-and-white view of my driveway, the SUV a pale ghost in the center. Nothing moved. The minutes ticked by. My eyes grew heavy. I must have dozed. A soft electronic asterisk hiss asterisk from the monitor jarred me awake. The time on the receiver read 3:04 a.m., the witching hour. I looked at the screen. The passenger door of the SUV was open. Not wide, just ajar, a black wedge of space. I sat bolt upright, my heart hammering against my sternum. I hadn't heard a sound. No alarm. No chirp of the unlock mechanism. I watched, frozen, as the door seemed to sit there, an impossible black mouth in the side of the vehicle. Then, slowly, almost lazily, it swung shut. The thunk was inaudible through the monitor's tiny speaker, but I felt it in my bones. I was out of bed and at the window in 2 strides, yanking the blind up. The driveway was empty. The car sat, doors closed, exactly as it had before. Had I dreamed it? A hypnagogic hallucination born of stress and suggestion? I looked back at the monitor. The screen was now pure, flickering static. The connection was lost. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in the armchair by the window, watching the car until the sky lightened to gray, then to pink. No more lights. No more open doors. Just the silent, silver beast. In the morning, I retrieved the camera from the porch. The battery compartment was empty. The 3 batteries were gone. Not dead, gone. Rational explanations tumbled through my sleep-deprived brain. The compartment latch was loose. They'd fallen out. An animal had somehow nudged it open, but the latch was firm, and the batteries were nowhere to be found on the porch below. I made a decision. I called a tow truck. I told the dispatcher the car wouldn't start, that I needed it taken to the dealership for diagnostics. When the truck arrived, Lily watched from the window, her expression unreadable as the SUV was winched onto the flatbed and driven away. The relief was immediate and immense. A physical weight lifted from my chest. The source of the fear, the locus of this nightmare, was gone. For the first time in days, I breathed easily. I took Lily for a long walk in the park. She held my hand, and though she didn't speak, the terrible tension in her small frame had eased. She even pointed at a squirrel, a faint, almost smile touching her lips. We returned home as afternoon faded. The empty stretch of driveway where the car had sat felt like a healing scar. I ordered pizza, we ate on the living room floor, and a semblance of peace settled over our home. It was shattered at 7 p.m. by the phone call. It was the service manager from Genesis downtown. Mr. Alder, we've completed the diagnostic on your vehicle. No issues were found. It starts right up. We also performed the multi-point inspection you requested. Everything checks out. It's ready for pickup. My mouth went dry. That's impossible. It wouldn't start this morning. Sometimes it's just a glitch with the smart key system, he said, his voice cheerful and dismissive. A dead spot. It happens. Do you want us to deliver it, or will you be picking it up? Panic, cold and slick, rose in my throat. I didn't want it back. I wanted it crushed into a cube. No, I said too sharply. I mean, keep it there. I'll call you tomorrow with instructions. Sir, we close in an hour, and we don't have overnight storage for customer vehicles unless they're undergoing major repairs. It's policy. I can have a driver drop it at your house tonight if you'd like. No charge. The thought of that car being brought back, deposited once more on my driveway like a returning curse, made me feel faint. No, absolutely not. I'll come get it. I would drive it straight to a different mechanic, I thought wildly. Or to a junkyard. Anything to keep it from coming back here. I'll wait for you, the manager said. I hung up, my hands shaking. Lily was watching me, her pizza forgotten. I forced a smile. Daddy has to go out for a little bit. Just to run an errand, Mrs. Miller will come over. Her face crumpled. She ran to the front window and pointed at the empty driveway, then back at me, shaking her head with frantic violence. It's okay, I soothed, my heart breaking. The car is at the mechanics. I'm just going to go talk to them. I won't bring it back. I promise. She didn't believe me. The trust that had begun to regrow that afternoon withered in her eyes, replaced by that old, familiar terror. It gutted me. But I had to go. I had to secure the car to make sure it never returned. Mrs. Miller, a sweet, elderly widow, arrived with her knitting bag. I gave her hurried instructions, avoided Lily's accusatory stare, and left. I called a ride-share, refusing to even consider bringing another vehicle into this. The Genesis dealership was a brightly lit island of chrome and glass on the edge of the city. My SUV sat in the service bay, clean and gleaming under the fluorescent lights, looking utterly benign. The service manager, a man named Dave with a firm handshake, handed me the keys. Like I said, perfect health. You've got a great vehicle there. I took the keys as if they were a live snake. Thanks. I think I'll trade it in, actually. Do you have a sales manager I can talk to? Dave's smile faltered. Tonight? They're all gone for the day. You'd have to come back tomorrow. But the car is ready now. Do you need a ride somewhere? I was trapped. I couldn't leave it here. I couldn't take it home. I'll take it for now. The walk to the driver's side door felt like the Green Mile. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I unlocked it with the fob, the chirp sounding obscenely loud in the quiet service area. I opened the door. The interior smelled of citrus-scented cleaner and new car. Nothing sinister. I got in, adjusted the seat and mirrors out of long-ingrained habit, and started the engine. It purred to life, smooth and powerful. The dashboard lit up, a symphony of harmless information. I was being ridiculous. A grown man, spooked by shadows and a child's trauma-induced fantasy. I pulled out of the dealership and onto the main road, heading not toward home, but aimlessly, just to drive while I figured out what to do. I'd find a 24-hour parking garage downtown, leave it there for the night, and deal with it in the morning. Sell it for scrap. Set it on fire, anything. The city lights glittered around me. Traffic was light. I flipped on the radio, seeking the mundane comfort of talk radio, of human voices discussing sports or politics. Static hissed, then cleared. Back with you on this chilly evening. The time is 8:47 p.m. Up next, we have a call from James in the North End. James, you're on the air. What's on your mind? A pause. Then a voice, low, raspy, and utterly without effect, filled the cabin. I'm just sitting here, watching the houses go by. So many little lives. Behind so many little windows. The host chuckled, a nervous sound. Well, that's philosophical, James. Are you driving? A longer pause. The sound of slow, deliberate breathing crackled through the speakers. I'm in the back seat. The blood drained from my face. My eyes shot to the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, cloaked in the shadows of the streetlights flashing by. It was a coincidence. A creepy, random caller on a late-night show. That's all. The host's laugh was even more strained. Okay, James, I think we're gonna move on. Thanks for the call, but the caller wasn't done. His voice dropped to a whisper, an intimate, grating sound that seemed to come from right behind my headrest. She has such pretty hair. Like spun gold? So quiet now. But she saw me. She's the only one who ever has. My foot slammed on the brake. The car screeched to a halt in the middle of the lane, earning a furious honk from behind. I fumbled for the radio controls, jabbing the power button. The voice cut off. Sitting there, heart pounding, hazard lights blinking, I stared into the mirror, empty. Of course it was empty. It was a sick joke. A horrifying, random cosmic joke. But the description spun gold. Lily's hair, before it had darkened slightly to a honey blonde. So quiet now. It was him, the man from Lily's whisper, the man from her drawing, and he was on my radio. This was insanity. I was having a psychotic break. That was the only explanation. Grief, guilt, stress, and sleep deprivation had finally conspired to unravel my mind. I took several deep, shuddering breaths. I needed to get home. I needed to see Lily to ground myself in reality. I put the car in drive and continued, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I didn't turn the radio back on. 20 minutes later, I pulled onto my street. My plan to ditch the car was forgotten, overridden by a primal need for the safety of my walls, for the sight of my daughter. I would park in the driveway, go inside, and call Dr. Evans first thing. For me, I turned into the driveway. Mrs. Miller's car was gone. The house was dark, except for the porch light. She must have put Lily to bed and left, as arranged. I killed the engine and sat for a moment in the sudden heavy silence. The interior light automatically illuminated. I reached for the door handle and stopped. There, on the otherwise pristine leather of the passenger seat, was a single item that had not been there when I got in the car at the dealership. It lay perfectly centered, as if placed with care. It was Lily's favorite hair clip, a small yellow butterfly. She'd been wearing it that afternoon during our walk. She must have dropped it in the car earlier. But the car had been at the dealership all day. I hadn't driven her in weeks. A low, humming vibration began to thrum through the car. Not the engine. Something deeper in the frame. The scent in the air changed from citrus cleaner to something dank, earthy like wet soil and old leaves. And then, from the speakers, though the radio was off, the raspy voice whispered directly into the stillness. "You should have left us alone, Mark," I screamed. A raw, unfiltered sound of pure terror. I clawed at the door handle, shoved the door open, and fell out onto the cold driveway gravel. I scrambled backward on my hands and feet, like a crab, unable to take my eyes off the vehicle. The interior lights stayed on, and in the back seat, for one fleeting, heart-stopping second, I saw a shape. A man's silhouette slumped against the window, head lolling. Then it was gone. I ran. I left the car door wide open, the keys in the ignition, the light spilling out. I fumbled with my house key, my hands shaking so violently I could barely fit it in the lock. I burst inside, slammed the door, and engaged every lock. "Lily!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Lily!" Silence. I raced through the dark house, flipping on lights. The living room was empty. The kitchen. I took the stairs 2 at a time, throwing open the door to her bedroom. Her bed was neatly made, empty. A silent, howling vortex opened inside me. I checked the bathroom, the closets. Under the beds, nothing. The house was empty. Mrs. Miller, she must have taken her. I grabbed my phone from my pocket with numb fingers, scrolling for Mrs. Miller's number. I called. It rang and went to voicemail. I called Officer Jenkins next. He picked up on the second ring. "Mark, what's wrong?" "My daughter," I choked out. "She's gone. The babysitter left, and she's gone. And the car... Bill, something is in the car. Something's wrong with the car?" "Mark, slow down." "Where are you?" "Home, I'm home." "Lily's not here." "Okay, stay right there. Do not go outside. I'm 2 minutes away. I'm calling it in." I hung up and stood in the center of Lily's room, surrounded by her stuffed animals and drawings, drowning in a panic so profound it felt like I was being physically crushed. My eyes fell on her drawing pad, open on her small desk, to the picture of the car, the man with the torn-out eyes, and next to it a new drawing, one she must have done today after our walk. It was our house, and in the window of my bedroom upstairs she had drawn a stick figure me, and outside on the driveway she had drawn the car. But the car door was open, and a thick black crayon line snaked from the car door, Up the side of the house and asterisk into asterisk the window of her own bedroom. A black umbilical cord of ink. The humming was back, but it wasn't coming from outside. It was asterisk in the house asterisk. A low, subaudible thrum I felt in my teeth. I followed the sound. It led me to the air vent in the hallway. I knelt, putting my ear to the cold metal grate. The humming was clearer here, and with it I could hear something else. A faint, rhythmic scraping, like something dragging slowly through the ductwork. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Ghosts aren't real. Monsters aren't real. They are metaphors for trauma, for guilt. They don't crawl through air vents. Daddy? The whisper came from right behind me. Lily's voice, but thin and far away, as if she were speaking from the bottom of a well. I whirled around. The hallway was empty. Lily? I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. He's in the walls. Her voice came from her bedroom this time. I ran back in, empty. The voice next came from the bathroom. Then from downstairs in the living room. It was moving, taunting me, leading me on a chase through my own dark house. The scraping in the vents grew louder, more frantic. It was in the ceiling above me now. I stood at the top of the stairs, paralyzed by a terror so complete it was a kind of awe. The rational world had not just cracked. It had shattered, and something ancient and foul was pouring through the breaks. The front door exploded inward. Not from a kick. It imploded, splintering into 1,000 pieces of wood and glass as if a bomb had detonated against it. Officer Jenkins stood on the porch, his service weapon drawn, his face a mask of shock at the destruction he hadn't caused. "Mark," he yelled, stepping over the wreckage. "The vents!" I screamed, pointing at the ceiling. "He's in the vents. He has Lily." Jenkins didn't question it. He didn't look at me like I was crazy. His eyes tracked upward, following the now audible, frantic scrabbling that raced across the ceiling from the foyer toward the back of the house. He moved with a predator's grace, his gun aimed upward, following the sound. It led us to the kitchen. The noise was directly above the large central air return vent. Jenkins gestured for me to stay back. He positioned himself to the side, reached out with his foot, and kicked the vent cover. It clattered to the floor. A wave of that dank, earthy smell poured out, thick and cloying. The scrabbling stopped. Silence hung in the air, heavier than any sound. And then, from the black square in the wall, Lily's yellow butterfly hair clip fell out, landing with a tiny clink on the tile floor. Jenkins aimed his flashlight into the duct. The beam illuminated a tunnel of dusty sheet metal, empty. "Lily!" I shouted into the void, my voice echoing metallically. A response, not a voice. A tapping. A slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap from deep within the labyrinth of ducts. A code? SOS? Jenkins was already on his radio, calling for backup, for the fire department with thermal cameras. But I knew we were out of time. The thing, the man, the presence, it was moving her, deeper, away. There was an access panel in the garage where the main duct trunk met the furnace. I ran Jenkins on my heels. I threw open the garage door and hit the light switch. The silver SUV sat there, its open driver's door still gaping. It hadn't been in the driveway. I had left it in the driveway. But here it was, inside my locked garage, as if it had always belonged there. I ignored it, my focus on the furnace. I grabbed a crowbar from my workbench and jammed it into the seam of the large, sheet metal access panel. With a shriek of protesting screws, it tore open. The duct was wider here, big enough for a man to crawl through. The dank smell was overpowering. And there, just inside, caught on a jagged piece of metal, was a shred of pale pink flannel from Lily's pajamas. Jenkins shone his light down the tunnel. It disappeared into darkness. "Mark, you can't go in there. It's unstable. Backup is coming." But the tap, tap was fading, getting farther away. I didn't hesitate. I climbed into the duct. The metal groaned under my weight. It was a tight, claustrophobic hell, coated in years of dust and insulation fibers. I crawled, following Jenkins' flashlight beam from behind me, following the fading caps, following the occasional thread of pink flannel. The duck turned, branched. I took the path where the smell was strongest. The tunnel began to slope downward. We were moving beneath the house into the crawl space. The air grew colder, damper. The tapping had stopped. "Lily!" I called, my voice muffled. A weak sob echoed back to me. It came from ahead and to the left. I pushed forward, the metal buckling ominously. I reached a junction where a smaller duct branched off. Lying at the mouth of it, as if discarded, was one of Lily's slippers. I turned into the smaller duct. It was a tighter squeeze. I inched forward on my elbows. The beam of Jenkins' light was distant now, a faint glow behind me. Then the duct ended. It terminated at a large, old-fashioned cast-iron grate, the kind used in houses a century ago. It was sealed shut with layers of paint and rust. On the other side of the grate was blackness, and curled in a ball on the duct floor in front of the grate, shivering in her torn pajamas, was Lily. "Lily!" I scrambled the last few feet, reaching for her. She flinched, then recognized me and threw herself into my arms, her small body racked with silent sobs. She was ice cold. "It's okay, I've got you, I murmured, pulling her close, trying to warm her. She pulled back slightly and pointed a trembling finger at the sealed grate. There, in the absolute darkness beyond the iron bars, 2 points of light ignited. Not reflections. Not animal eyeshine. A sickly phosphorescent green. They hovered at the height of a man's face. And then they blinked. A voice, the same raspy whisper from the radio, but now thick with a wet, congested sound, oozed from the darkness. "She's a quiet thing. Like I was. They made me quiet, too." Down in the dark, I clutched Lily to my chest, shielding her eyes. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The green eyes shifted. "The first one. The one who was here before the house. Before the street." They poured the foundation right over me. So cold, so dark. For so long, the story spilled out in that awful, wet whisper. A victim of a crime, decades ago, before our subdivision was built. His body hidden, never found. His spirit, or his rage, or his terrible loneliness tethered to the spot. The earth. And when my car, with its modern electrical systems, its stereo, its endless energy, was parked night after night directly above him, it became a conduit, a battery, a vessel he could slowly, painfully learn to inhabit. The little one, the voice gurgled with something like affection. She could see me, through the quiet in her. She's like a clean window. The others, they're all noise. But she's quiet. She could stay with me, in the quiet dark. "No," I said, the word a rock in my throat. "Never. You brought her to me," the voice reasoned. "Your guilt, your grief. It's a loud, bright beacon in the quiet world. It called me up, through the wires, through the metal. Your sorrow is my door." Jenkins had caught up, his light flooding the small space. He saw the eyes in the dark, heard the voice. His face went pale, but his gun hand never wavered. "Move away from the grate, Mark. Take Lily and go back, now." The green eyes fixed on Jenkins. "The law. You shine your lights. You make your noise. You never see what's right under your feet." As I began to shuffle backward, dragging Lily with me, the thing in the darkness spoke one last time, its voice suddenly clear and chillingly sane. "You can take her from this pipe, Mark, but I am in the wires. I am in the soil. I am in the silence of your house when you think you're alone. And I am so very tired of the dark." We scrambled out of the ductwork back into the blinding, chaotic normality of the kitchen now filled with other officers and paramedics. Lily was wrapped in blankets, checked over, declared physically unharmed but in shock. I gave a fragmented, incoherent statement that Jenkins quietly edited into something about an intruder and faulty ducts. They found nothing in the crawlspace. No body, no green eyes. Just dirt and pipes and the undisturbed silence of the earth. But they did find something under the house, near the old foundation. A small, corroded pocket knife. and a single tarnished silver button from a uniform that hadn't been in style for 50 years. We did not go back into that house. We left everything, clothes, toys, photographs, and moved into a hotel, then a small apartment on the other side of the city. I sold the property for a fraction of its value, as is, to a developer who planned to raise it and build condos. The SUV was impounded, then sold for scrap. I watched from a distance as it was fed into the crusher, reduced to a mangled cube of metal and glass. I felt no satisfaction, only a weary hope. Lily started speaking again. Not all at once, but in whispers, then words, then short sentences. She doesn't talk about the man in the back seat. She doesn't talk about the ducks. She talks about the bad quiet and the green dark. Her therapist says it will take time. I bought a new car. A simple, base model sedan with a manual key and a basic radio. No smart systems. No GPS, no connectivity. I park it in a secured public garage 2 blocks from our apartment. I never let the tank drop below half full. And I am learning a new kind of silence. Not the heavy, grieving silence of before, but a watchful one. I listen to the hum of every appliance. I watch the flicker of every light. I never ignore a cold spot in a room, or a battery that drains too fast, or a whisper from the radio in a dead zone. Because he was right. Guilt and grief are a beacon. They attract attention from things that hunger for that particular kind of energy. The world is not just what we see. It is also the quiet places in between, the dark under the foundation, the static between stations, the silence inside a traumatized child. And some things, once invited in by sorrow, are very hard to evict. My story is a warning. Tend to your grief. Mend your guilt. Do not let them fester in the quiet corners of your life, because the quiet has tenants, and they are always listening for a way in. If this story of hidden trauma and spectral warning resonated with you, if it made you look at the quiet corners of your own life a little differently, then do not let this be the end of the conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt an inexplicable presence, a chill of certainty that defied logic? Your experiences might help others feel less alone. And if you want to explore more stories where the past refuses to stay buried and the line between grief and something more sinister blurs, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a journey into the shadows that lurk just beyond the edge of the light. Your engagement is what allows these stories to be told. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most important thing you can do is break the silence.